Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Family. Let's Talk Family is a bi-weekly show where we come on and really just talk about things that are within the family or things that affect the family. Hey, before we go any further, feel free to like, share, or comment. Definitely comment. We do talk and answer the comments in the chat box, so definitely feel free to comment. Today, we're going to talk about home ownership, home buying, the housing market, all the good stuff like that. Listen, you can't have a house without a family, and you can have a family with no house, but we're just going to talk about all different things like that. I found out a long time ago that realtors, I always say that word wrong, realtors have the pulse of the community. So I decided to get a realtor on here so that we can discuss some things about home ownership and buying a home. So let's talk family. Let's welcome my good friend Cosmo. How you doing this evening?
I am good. Good. How about you?
I'm doing well also. Thank you for being on here and providing us with your expertise.
Thank you.
All right, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been a realtor in this area in Okaloosa County since 2005. Of course, you're gonna have to forgive the dogs. I think the wife's gonna be coming home soon. But I've been a realtor since 2005, and over that lifespan, we've hit some pretty good ups and downs. The original 2004 real estate bubble, then the subsequent crash that came with that, and here we are creeping back up again. I come from prior military, so I was 4 years in the Army. I was NBC, nuclear biological and chemical warfare specialist, 54 Bravo, and from there I opened up my own company. Worked for I started as a paint company, a paint contractor, and then worked for a superintendent. Started supering for him in the construction business. Started at a Home Depot. Worked Home Depot for quite some time, and kind of took it from there. After I left Home Depot from where I met my wife, I got into real estate, and I wish I had done that years and years and years ago. I love the real estate business, and I love the constant contact with people and all the new friends that we meet and all the things that happen with that.
Man, I'll tell you what, that sounds like a whole lot of interesting steps to get to where you are today. Seems like everything you said built into you being a realtor.
Yeah, I have a different approach. Real estate is sales. I mean, it's a commission-based business, and we don't make money unless a house sells, or our buyer purchases, or our seller sells the property. But I look at it differently. I look at it as a building block to future, again, friendships and connections with the community. Most people that know me, that have ever done a deal with me, know that I'm not about the sale. I'm not trying to push the house because it's the prettiest, cutest thing that's on the market. It's
Right,
about what your needs are and what it is that you're looking for. And if this house isn't the right house, then I'm the first person to tell you this is not the right house. It's time to move on.
right, right. So over the last few years, the housing market has just done some very interesting and crazy things. So let's start off by just talking about what the housing market has looked like over the last. I don't even think we need to go past 5 years. What?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, it is crazy. I mean, obviously the pandemic has made some big changes, and
Right,
what really happened is I think there was a lot of fear, or possibly even fear of missing out when it comes to the housing market. So, 5-ish or so years ago, as prices were starting to slowly creep up, we started to see some inventory challenges. And that started with the rental market. And once the rental market becomes tight, then people who can't rent start buying. And then once the buying market becomes tight, or we have a lack of inventory, um, it's a snowball effect. And
right.
as of what, gosh, last year, I think it was, um, we were seeing properties on the market for 24 hours and 8, 10 offers on that property, all over asking price without appraisal contingencies, as is, no repairs. I know
Yeah,
that there was a time, probably at the beginning of last year, I was working with a gentleman who is in the Air Force, and we were trying to buy a piece of property in the Niceville, Navarre area. And I know we made offers on 10 properties, at least 10 properties, and almost going $20,000 over asking price,
wow.
0 days inspection periods, no appraisal contingency. So if it didn't appraise, he was willing to bring the extra money to closing, and we still didn't get the property.
Wow.
We finally found him something, and yeah, he wound up paying over asking price, but it was just we had to work that deal because you know the owner that was selling it couldn't leave, so we had to kind of, I'm not going to say agree to that, but um, in his position, he didn't have to move in immediately. So he was a great buyer for that property. So, um, and now what we start seeing is, I'm not going to say that the market is coming down. It's not quite down yet. Yeah, we're starting to see some price decreases on things, but what we're seeing is that the properties are staying on the market longer, and when they're on the market longer, the sellers are more willing to make concessions. So it's not necessarily that the sellers got the house in the market and they're like, okay, we're just going to drop it 10 grand or 20 grand or whatever to get a buyer in there. It's just
Right.
that when that buyer does come in, and it's usually on the early side of it, and they want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, we're able to put that deal together.
Yeah. So how challenging has it been a realtor?
Well, the challenging part has been just a lack of inventory. On the
Right.
listing side of it, it's extremely challenging because not everybody is trying to sell their property, and we have this huge amount of buyers that are trying to buy in this extremely limited amount of inventory. And I mean, we're kind of lucky because the area is very military heavy,
Right.
so you know, it's not it's not as challenging in some other areas, as we have here. It's just that we have a lot of people trying to buy and there's not a lot to buy. That is starting to change. The builders have helped a lot with that. But again, with the houses not staying on the market, or I should say the houses staying on the market for a little bit longer than what they were, then that's given people more of an ability to pick and choose different properties. And I'll give you a very good example. I listed a couple of properties a few weeks ago. One was in the 279 range, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, this house is gorgeous. It's super cute. It's in a great location.
Right.
This thing's going to go under contract in 2 days. We didn't get the first showing for 4 days. And
Wow.
then it showed 7 times before we finally went under contract. And we got a full price offer. But, it's just like we were so used to putting that house on the market and that phone would ring in a minute. And
Right.
we'd have 5 and 6 people and they were fighting over the properties. And that's slowly starting to go away, especially in the higher price points. So things that are over 300, 350, even 400. I never thought that I would see those prices in our area as an average price,
Right.
but those are staying on the market a little bit longer, um, and they're not seeing the activity as before. Now, the lower price points, those are still moving pretty good. Under 250, 200, especially, there's almost nothing in town on the market under 200. And when those things hit, they're gone in, a matter of minutes. But the feds are not helping us with that process. The rates are increasing. So, 5% or 5.5% on a $500,000 house is a big difference
Right.
than 5% on a $200,000 house,
Right.
dollar wise. So that's why those lower end houses, I say lower end, those um, under $200,000 prices are not, they're just moving very, very quickly.
So what's the difference in the market over the last 5 years than say it was 10, 15 years ago?
Well, I mean, 10, let's see, back in what, '05, when the market had its initial run up and then a bursting of pricing, so what we saw is that those prices dropped down to like a 1992 level. So what a house in 2005, after the crash of the market, and the market just took a big dive, at the very bottom, if you went back historically, you would see those 2007-ish, 2008 properties listed and selling for around the 1992 numbers, which is that's a big difference in price points, especially when real estate being cyclic, it goes up and down just like the stock market. And
Right.
about every 8 years or so, you see a peak. And then about another 8 years down the line, you see a trough. We went from starting to peak or coming out of that original bubble burst, back in, let's say 08, right? It started to creep up. And as it crept up, it kept going, it kept going, it kept going, it kept going, and never really had a slowdown until, the coronavirus hit. Once the coronavirus hit, we saw a slowdown, but the slowdown was not in pricing. It was just in movement.
Wow.
And right. You know what I mean? So we were still creeping up in pricing, but the pricing didn't drop because of coronavirus. It just kept on slowly going. And then, for whatever reason, with supply demand and, supply constraints and inflationary things happening, the market just went just gangbusters so fast,
Right.
a lot faster than we actually could imagine it was going to happen. And then here we are, we got buyers making offers on 10, 15, 20 houses and never touching it. So, today, well, let's go back to that 5-year mark. We were still creeping up, but we were kind of incrementally, 3 to 5% appreciation, give or take. And then you hit basically post-pandemic, and it just, big light bulb goes off and everybody's like, I'm ready to buy. And it just crept up, 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 up. And 10, 20, I think the pricing went up from last year, maybe 30+%, give or take. So yeah, that's hard to believe. You could have bought your house 3 years ago and sold it yesterday and made 80, 90, $100,000 in profit. That's how big it, went up. So
Wow.
you bought a house for 300, and yeah, so that 300, take 30% on it, 90 grand. You sold it for 415. You made almost 100 grand on it in less than 3 years. And that's exactly what we saw back in 2004, 5, 6.
Right.
The exact same thing, especially imagine a young airman, you're an E4 and you paid, $190,000 for your property, and then 2.5 years later you PCS and you're selling it for 100 grand more what you paid for it.
Right.
Um,
Right. That's
it's
life changing.
it is life changing, and I don't know that that's necessarily, you're in the right place at the right time. It was just more of a. I apologize. There's the dogs, but
Oh, good. Let the dogs bark.
yeah, but it was the right time, not necessarily the
Yeah.
right place at the right time, but more of the right time, if that makes any
Right.
sense.
Right.
So, then what winds up happening is you can make money on your property, but then you can't buy anything. Not only can you not buy anything because there's nothing available, you can't buy anything in what your opinion is going to be affordable. So
Right.
if you're going to you got to take that $100,000 that you just made on the property and turn around and put it on the new house to have the same payment. So unless you're just trying to, move up and get into a different location, then it almost made no sense to sell the property. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but we saw a lot of that, and that
Right.
becomes an inventory problem, so no one wants to move. Um, as most people know, that a lot of the stuff that I do is REO backed, so it's real estate owned, and it's bank foreclosures and that sort of thing. I've had my pulse on that for a pretty good while. Actually, after the last market crash, I got into the REO business, and that's kind of been my claim to fame since I got into it. And even on the REO side, has been nothing. They had the moratoriums that came out for not just renters, but for not just renters, but also for homeowners who are struggling to make their payments. They
Right.
had a forbearance. They came out, and no one was foreclosing. Fannie Mae having 60+% of all the mortgage backed, properties in their portfolio. They were in line with the government, we're not foreclosing. And then some of the other smaller banks followed suit. What happened is that helped create and perpetuate the current market that we're in, because those REO properties a lot of times turned out to be some very affordable housing for
Right.
certain people. And I don't mean affordable like where an investor is going to buy it and fix it and flip it and make money on it. I'm talking, someone lost their house and it needs paint, carpet, and some very minor repairs, and you could buy it and get a good deal on it.
Right.
Those don't exist. They didn't exist, not for years and years. We're slowly starting to see that come back. And it's sporadic, but it's there.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said something that I never thought about. How did COVID affect realtors?
Well, everybody was staying home. So
Right.
not just the staying home part of it. So as on the showing side of it. So after we had, obviously, we had our lockdown, right? So after the lockdown and people started coming out of their houses and venturing out, um, during that time, no one was really listing their house for sale. That everyone was, afraid of the unknown. No one wanted
Right.
to have people come in their homes who, potentially could bring in some type of a virus. And it created a stagnated environment when it came to sellers willing to sell their property. Now, the vacant ones, that didn't matter. Who cares? You come in, you come out. But others, it was a huge hesitation. And for us
Right.
as realtors, those people say, I want to put a timeout on the property. And that's what we did. Same thing, having buyers come out and talk to you. And, we were, I'm a big handshaker, I'm a,
Yeah.
firm handshake. Let's go, and you go from that to elbow bumps or fist bumps.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
and you're sharing your hand sanitizer, like, I'm gonna shake your hand or fist bump you. And okay, now here's some hand sanitizer and
Right.
let's continue on. Um, it did. I think it's the mentality and the unknown that really caused a lot of people to kind of hold back. And again, it's like it's like a springboard. You pull it back and you pull it back and you pull it back, and then or a slingshot, even pull it back, let it go, and it just fires off.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with our market. It's we pulled back, and then shot out, and then it's just went to the moon, and it continues to go on. And then rates help. Rates are helping bring it down, but it's not there yet.
Yeah. I didn't, like I said, I didn't think about how the housing market and realtors were affected, but I do know that I heard that realtors have the pulse of the community. And after I heard it, I was like, you know what, that's true. They know everything that's going on about the family inside of the community.
Right.
Yeah, like y'all know with the ups and the downs, like you're
Yeah.
like the central point of it all.
Yeah, we try. I mean, real estate or being a realtor is a community-based business.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're self-employed again. And yes, we work, on commissions, but it's about building relationships. And you can't build relationships without kind of knowing what other people are up to, or, befriending the people who aren't friended, if that
Yeah,
makes any sense. And it's about being able to answer questions for people. It's simple stuff like, do you know a painter? Well,
yeah,
yeah, I know a painter, right? I mean, it's not just about convincing someone that this is the right property to buy and this now is the right time to buy it, and pricing wise it's reasonable. The next questions are, do you know a painter? Do you know a lawn guy? Hey, I want to put a pool in. Who do you know that would do that? Um, what about termite inspections or termite treatments? Is there a good company or a bad company? What should I do about my AC? Should I have this thing serviced quarterly, annually, semi-annually? Who does that? And as realtors, we're fortunate that we can make those connections, not just with those vendors and contractors in the world, but between us and them and you, for example. Um, and it's an important part of that process. And I think by being that and being able to give that information to the public, um, it does make you have a pulse, because you hear there's a lot of people that are wanting to install quartz countertops now. That's interesting. Or, like, you think about it, back in the day, beige was like super popular, and then it became gray was super popular, right? And now what we see is white is coming back, and white's becoming super popular. And how would you know that if you didn't either go see properties that had these things that were just recently done,
Right.
talk to people who wanted to do things like hey, I just saw this on HGTV, what do you think? I don't know, let's see what it looks like. And
Right.
it's just, again, it's a snowball effect, but you're able to kind of get an idea what's happening in the world.
So the sale doesn't end the relationship. Relationship continues after the sale.
I think it's a must. It must continue after the sale. And again, I'm there are agents that are out there that are all about the sale. That they
Right.
will tell you anything and everything that you want to hear, so that you sign on the dotted line and you buy that property and you press on with your life. And then the next thing you know, you may or may not hear from them later on down the line. I'm not like that. I'm again, my goal is, I want you to buy something that's right for you. And if it's not right for you, then we need to keep looking for the right property, whatever that price point is. I tell a lot of people, it takes 1,000 pennies to make a dollar. So I'm happy to sell you a property that's $100,000 or $500,000. If the $100,000 is right for you based on what you want and your needs and what your family needs, then let's go. Let's make it happen. If the $500,000 one is the right for you, then again, let's go. Let's make it happen. But as a realtor, we are there to kind of, guide that process.
Right.
And again, after the sale, I think that's a major, it's super important. You think about, you would hope that if you sold someone a house, that they were so happy with your service that when they were ready to move, they remembered you and they
Right.
called you up and they said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to sell my house, and I like the way that you helped me out on mine. Can you help me out on this one?" That's what it's all about.
Yeah. So it's a referral base too, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in the past 5 years, 25% of the business has been referral based, either been from previous clients or someone who knows someone, or a referral from someone who worked with me and said, "You got to call this person. He's going to take
Wow.
care of you." Yeah.
That's
And
that's pretty high.
again, yeah, I mean, the world has changed significantly since even whenever I became a realtor back in '05. The smartphones and Zillows of the world, and Realtor.coms of the world, and all those things have become an open book when it comes to being able to, see properties and that sort of thing. But, you know, what I like, I'm a workaholic. So I am. I like those 11 o'clock at night text messages. A lot of people don't. Hey, it's 6 o'clock and this is my family time, and I don't have time for you. Not me. You send me a message at 11 o'clock. If I'm awake, you're getting a text message from me. I mean, there's so many times you'll get an email like 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, "What the heck is he doing at 1 o'clock in the morning?" I'm sending you an email. That's what I'm doing. Um, but I do kind of cut back on the phone calls, after a certain time. But on vacation, man, I can be standing in line at Disney and you and I are having a conversation, and you would actually not even know I was in Disney. So,
Right. Yeah. So look, I think that when we look at buying a house, it is one of the biggest purchases that someone can do.
right,
And there's no particular husband, wife, friends, child, older adults. Like there's so many different variables when it comes to buying a house. So let's just
right,
talk about some basic things that we should look for when we're buying a house. Like I know in business, location, location, location is
right.
everything. So what is the number one first rule out the gun? I'm looking for a house.
I would say location is indeed that number one thing.
Yeah.
And it's not what you mean. It's not what you think. It's not location because you want to buy that property in this location and it's the best location you can be in. It's where do you work? Where do you go to school?
Right.
What
Right.
school district do you want your kid to go to? Those are the first and foremost questions. Because if you say, oh, I found this great piece of property and it fits my budget, and it's an hour away from work, that's a challenge. And who wants to do that? You're the one that's going to be stroking a check for that mortgage payment, and at some point that mortgage payment is going to get really expensive, especially
Right.
when you're sitting in traffic. And our 1 hour drive is not the same as being stuck in Atlanta traffic for an hour. A lot of people do, like, well, I commuted back and forth when we lived in Atlanta or some other busy area. It's different.
Right.
There's some crazy people out there driving, and let it rain, and next thing you know, everybody's rubbernecking, and that 1 hour drive just turned into a 2 or 3 hour drive. And you're like, what? Why is the traffic backed up again? And there's like two cars on the side of the road and he's changing his tire.
Right.
And you've been in traffic for 2 hours. It's different. So that's one of the things that I would absolutely think that you would have to consider is, what are you willing to do and how far are you willing to go? Because that might certainly determine what you're able to buy. Very good example. What you can buy in Fort Walton Beach for $300,000 is significantly different than what you can buy in Crestview for $300,000.
Right.
And, it's an older home. Insurance is going to be higher. Taxes are going to be higher. Is it super close to the beach and super close to the bases? Yes, it is. But, do you want to live in that 1,300 square foot, 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath house that was built in 1960? Or do you want to live in a 1,600 square foot house on a third of an acre that's got a 2-car garage, and you don't have to listen to your neighbor's TV?
Right. Right.
So that becomes the most important thing. So location. The second thing is, of course, budget. You gotta. A lot of people think when they get their pre-approval from the lender says, okay, you're pre-approved for a $250,000 house. Okay, but that's not necessarily the case. The $250,000 property is actually broken down, and it's broken down into what a monthly payment is.
Right.
So, based on the current interest rate and the type of loan you're going to be using, whether it be VA or conventional or FHA, whatever it might be, you have a payment, and that payment is going to consist of your taxes and your insurance. Those are a big part of those. Prepaids are part of your mortgage payment. That 1965 house versus that 2010 house, insurance wise, completely different. You might be $2,000 a month on that 1960s house, and $1,200 a month on the one that was built in 2010. That affects your mortgage payment. So your mortgage payment could easily go from being able to afford a $250,000 house to being able to afford a $265,000 house. So, that is something that you need to pay attention to. But
Yeah.
so that would be kind of the next thing, and maybe location and price are about the same, but I think that hands down, location, next scenario is not just how much you want to spend grand total, but what can you realistically afford monthly, and then work from there, because that might determine your location.
So now those are all great things, but I want to bring up something that a lot of our viewers don't consider, and something that you and I both are familiar with. Military.
Mhm.
Military move around and are expected to purchase a house or look for a house in an area that they know absolutely nothing about,
Right.
and trying to find a realtor and all this stuff. So how is it for military looking for a house in an area that they know nothing about?
Well, today is much better than what it was 5 years ago. Um,
Right.
Google Earth is your friend, and Google Maps is a great thing. I think that if you connect with a good realtor and a helpful realtor, much like myself, I'm going to toot my own horn, right?
Mhm.
What one of the things that we could do, or that I do, is I do FaceTimes. We do Google Duos for Android users and FaceTime for iPhone users, and we go to the property. And you know, the most frustrating thing is to be 6 or 7 hours away and make a drive to look at two properties, and you hate the area, or
Right.
it just wasn't what you remotely were thinking. And what looks on good on paper, what looks good in pictures, isn't
Right.
necessarily always the case. I mean, that's a frustrating thing for me is, you see these spectacular pictures, and they're distorted a little bit, and the rooms look twice as big as what they really are. And you get there and you're like, you have got to be kidding me.
Right.
It's like an 8 by 8 when online it looked like a 12 by 12. So, one of the things that I offer to my long distance buyers is, hey, look, before you make that trip to come down, let's actually put some boots on the ground. Let's go look at it. Let's take a walk around the outside. Are there issues that you wouldn't see that are happening with that property that you
Right.
wouldn't see in pictures, like maybe some erosion issues or the way it's constructed, and just other potential problems. So um, luckily for us, Google Maps, Google Earth, where you can actually walk the street, is extremely helpful. Um,
Mhm.
having a realtor that is willing to go do that FaceTime video, drive down the street with your phone, and drive slow so that they can actually see the neighborhood, and you can have some conversations with them about this particular area. Uh, our area is kind of unique. Well, maybe not necessarily unique. I mean, I know that Pensacola and all the other areas are like that, but sometimes you got to drive through not the greatest of locations to fit this
Right.
amazing location. And you're like, man, I didn't even know this place existed. I never went past this second house because I just didn't like this area, or as
Right.
mobile homes, or the houses were falling apart. Whatever the case may be. So, you know, that is something that I think that every agent should absolutely do for their buyers, especially if they're military. Because once they get those notices that they're going to be PCSing in town, they want to, most people that are military, they want to jump right on it. They want to be Johnny on the spot, and let's get down and make this thing happen. So having an agent that's willing to help is very helpful. And I think that's some very important part. I have sold countless houses that the buyers actually never stepped foot in the property, you know.
Mhm.
But I can walk in there and say, "Man, this kind of smells like pee,"
Right.
and you can't see that in a picture. And that goes back to that honesty and that relationship that you want with your realtor. You want your realtor to tell you that this house that you're looking at, that you're willing to spend all this money, smells like pee, right?
Right.
So, you know, why does it smell like pee? Is it the carpet, or whatever the case may be? So, um, eh, eh, having a relationship with a realtor, and this is another thing that I will say as well. And a lot of buyers don't necessarily realize this, but again, as realtors, we work off commissions, right? And we do not make a dollar unless the house physically closes and you get the keys and you continue on. Um, the the issues that we have as realtors is you and I can have a great relationship, and we can have a great communication and be working together, and a new house pops up on the market on realtor.com, right? And you're just looking for information because, I don't know, you're like, I don't want to bother Cosmo because I'm not really ready to see it, but I got some questions. And they reach out to the listing agent, or they reach out to, unbeknownst to them, another agent who isn't the listing agent on realtor.com. And the next thing you know, that particular buyer or you are now working and starting to work with another agent. And, you know, what happened there? We lost some traction when it comes to the process. And, most buyers don't realize that, that single agent can sell any property anywhere listed by any agent. They don't have to reach out to the listing agent to purchase that property. Or, like for me, I cover a large area. So you don't have to reach out to a Niceville agent when you can reach out to someone like myself who can show you and sell you a property in the Niceville area.
Right.
Um, so, as a realtor, the loyalty lies with my buyer, right? I'm here to do anything and everything that I can to make the process as easygoing and stress-free as possible, but reciprocally, if that's even a word,
One of
we're
them
looking
two.
for, I don't know. So, we're looking for buyers as well to say, hey, I'm going to reciprocate the fact that you're spending all this extra time and sending those 11 o'clock at night, text messages and 2 o'clock in the morning emails. And, we're gonna take this to the finish line, and we're gonna finish that process. So, buyers certainly, even with the advent of all the things that happen online anymore, it's super important to latch onto that realtor that is taking care of you and take it to the finish line.
Yeah, yeah. So we got location, we got budget. So now we are doing a walkthrough of the house.
Right.
What should we be looking for? Because the average
Gosh,
person don't know what they're looking for.
you're right. They don't. And see, what I'm looking for might be different than what you're looking for. So you as a single man or a single woman or a couple, if you're an expecting couple or just married, you're looking for room to grow.
Right.
We can turn this room into a gym, and then after that, we can turn it into a baby's room. And this house will be just big enough for us to plus a little one until we get ready to move on. Um, every scenario is completely different. So you're looking at how does the property look, and how's it going to feel for us. You're looking at location, and I'm looking at what's your future maintenance costs. What's going to break down on you potentially first. What's going to cause your insurance to be higher than what it potentially could be. What is going to affect your potential financing, because not only do Warren have to be able to qualify for that VA loan. That house you're trying to buy, that's a really good deal, has to also qualify for that type of financing. And if it doesn't, you have spent money on home inspections, you have spent money on appraisals, potentially spent money on surveys and termite inspections on a house that at the end of the day, the appraiser comes back and says, I'm really sorry, unless all these things are fixed and the seller isn't fixing them, all these things are fixed, you're not buying this house. So,
Mm.
as an agent, that's one of the things that I'm focusing on as we're walking that property. Um, again, you don't need me to tell you to look at the crown molding, right? You can walk in the house and see the crown molding that's there. I don't have to go, oh my God, look, it's got crown molding. It's so beautiful. You don't need that from me. You need me to walk around that property and say, huh, that's interesting. This back door isn't locking the way that it should.
Right.
Or this window has got a huge crack in it, or half the screens are missing. There's a bunch of wood rot underneath the garage door. Gosh, look at the way that all the roots are exposed in the side yard.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's because the washing out is happening there. Is it something that some dirt and some sod could fix? Is there something more nefarious to that? This is interesting. Look, there's a bunch of water stains right on the garage door along the baseboards on the way in. That's telling you what water's coming in the house somehow. Those are things that I'm looking at. You're
Right.
looking at with this is a perfect place for the baby, or this is the perfect
Right.
place to put my office, right? So, we're looking at different things. And I think that when it comes to trying to find an agent, you want to find that agent that's doing that extra stuff. Because again, no one needs to be able to tell you that it's got stainless steel appliances. I shouldn't be able to walk to the house and say, oh, look, it has stainless steel appliances and the carpet is new and there's crown molding. You don't need me for that.
Right.
What you need me for is to tell you the things that you don't know. And I think some of those things that I mentioned are the things that you just weren't thinking about.
Yeah. That's interesting because I mean, even as you and I are talking, I'm thinking, wow, those are the things that a realtor would, well, I ain't gonna say a realtor, a buyer would benefit from hearing.
Right.
You right, I can look at this. Oh, I can see the prices are new, the
Right.
tag is
Yeah.
still on, right? But then show me the things that I don't see, and with your years of experience, that are going to benefit me.
Right. And, experience does matter. I mean, in this business, it is very important, especially if you're on in a limited budget or a limited availability of properties. you want to be able to say that you put your best foot forward in trying to make this purchase. And, dealing with, I was new once as well, there's always that first time or the first 5 times, but at some point you have an opportunity to deal with a bunch of appraisers and a bunch of surveyors and a bunch of home inspectors and buyers and all the things that go with it. So there's a lot of things that have gone wrong. There's a lot of things you didn't know before you knew them. I didn't know that a VA appraiser would, kick the deal because it didn't have screens. Not until that first one happened where the appraiser says you need screens, right?
Right.
So sometimes it's a opportunity for you to buy some screens,
Yeah.
to make it all happen. But as much as I am very positive about new agents in the market and that sort of thing, you know, it, as a buyer or even a seller, you definitively want to try your best to try to work with someone that's kind of got the licks or has the scars to prove
Yeah.
that they have been there and done that, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. So that you bringing up another interesting point. I want to talk more about what we should look for in a house, but as you're talking, what should we look for in a realtor?
Well, I think that's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, probably somebody's got the same haircut as you. That's a good start, right? But
Yeah.
right, you know, look. So you got to be. We're in the day and age that non-communication is not acceptable.
Right.
Um, there's no anyone that knows me, if you try to call me on my phone and I don't answer, it's because I'm on the phone with another client, which I will not hang up with that person to answer my call. Unless it's my wife or my child calling me multiple times, then yeah, we need to put a pause on that. But, I'm not going to answer my call for someone who's, potentially more important than you. That's why I'm answering that call. So if I'm not answering a call, it's usually because I'm with somebody or I'm on the phone. But we are in the world of text messaging. We are in the world of emails. We are in the world of social media. And if you have an agent that you're potentially working with, and they can't get back to you in a timely manner, even if I'm on the phone with you, I can text that person and say, "Hey, I'm on the phone. I will call
Right.
you when I'm done." Or I'm walking with clients in a house because remember when we're walking that property, I'm not telling you about the crown molding. As I'm walking around the corner, I'm sending that person a text message with clients. Call you right back, right? So there realistically is no reason to not be over communicative with your clients. Number one. Number two, an agent has to have contacts. They have to have, bona fide lenders that they've dealt with that are, um, available to them. There's nothing more frustrating to be working with someone and their lender is somebody out of town who only works Monday through Friday from 9 to 4:30, and it's 6 o'clock on a Friday, and we're trying to get an answer to make an offer on this property on the extremely limited supply of properties, and you can't get an answer to that. So
Right.
a good agent would certainly have some local people and a good plethora of them to offer up. A good agent will also ask you, what are your financing things? Are you trying to purchase a property with as little money down as possible? Are you trying to only keep that property for 3 years? Are you trying to keep it longer term? Um, all that matters. There's different types of loans that you probably wouldn't want to get into if you're planning on, oh, I'm going to buy this with a higher rate, and I'm going to refinance it, for example.
Right.
Well, FHA is not necessarily your best friend if that's something that you want to do. You got PMI, that stuff doesn't go away, until you eventually refinance the property. So having an agent that has the contacts that if they don't know the answer, they can call and get the answer is important. Um, having an agent that will indeed tell you that there might be some possible challenges with a property that you're trying to purchase. you know. Um, Gosh, you could be working with the buyer for months and still not find the right property because
Right.
what falls into their budget hits the market. You go look at it and it's not the right property for whatever reason, whether it be financing wise or condition or repairs. Um, so I think having an agent that's willing to do all those things, still have a pulse on the ground, still give you options, and again, not make you feel like they're only in it for the money because it's certainly not about that.
Right.
So
Yeah. Seems like the agent really needs to get to know you as you're getting to know them, because you're going to point out some things that I'm not thinking about.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to do enough, you know, deals around that. I make a joke. My wife is my wingman, so she knows most people. So if we have conversations, hey, this happened and this is this particular buyer and this is a scenario that we dealt with and this is how we overcame it and blah, blah, blah. And his name is Warren. So, then we go to Publix and here you are in Publix, we're picking out some fruit together. I'm like, hi, what's up, Warren? How's it going? And we have that conversation. Now, you know, 300 deals later,
Hmm.
we see each other in the aisle. You know, I may not necessarily remember Warren's first name or Warren's last name, but I definitely remember that scenario that happened with that particular property.
Right.
And, you know, it's the relationship part of that is being able to kind of like have all those feelings and all those thoughts just come rushing in at one time, and then you're right back in it. You're right there.
Yeah.
So I guess as we get older it's harder to remember names, but let me tell you, man, I remember properties. So I do. That is
Yeah.
like, oh yep, that was that one where this happened, and yep, and I remember, and then you twisted your ankle, and I remember all that.
Yeah.
And so it's to me it's a lifelong friendship. And why wouldn't you want to be friends with someone who just moved to town,
Yeah.
as a buyer? They're a great referral source. They're possible clients in the future. They probably have kids that are getting really ready to buy a property, or whatever the case may be, or a mother who's moving to town, or whatever the case may be. So again, for me, real estate is about creating friendships and long going commitments to that, as you
Right.
move forward.
Wow. This has been very informative. I've learned a lot, and I thought I knew enough to say that I know something, but I guess I
Right.
didn't know anything.
Man, we didn't even touched it. What are you talking about? There's so much out there. Gosh.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah,
Well,
there's
I kind of really wanted to focus on, and I think we did a good job of it, you know, the impact to the family, and especially things to be looking for, because at the end of the day, you don't know what you're looking for.
right.
I've purchased two homes, and I knew what me and my wife were looking for when we walked into the house. But just like you said, there are things that, and I'll go ahead and say it, you were my realtor when we just purchased our home. There were things that you pointed out at every house you showed us
Right.
that we was looking at the crown mold, and we was looking at
Right.
the new appliances, we
Right.
was looking at the carpet, and you was like, hey, look at that crack right there.
Right.
Hey, look,
Yep.
look at the ground. Look how the ground is moving. And every time you said it, it was like, oh yeah, there is a crack right there. And I remember one particular time you was like, well, it's not to say there's nothing wrong with it. There's just a crack right there. And I
Right.
was like,
Yeah.
"Oh." And you're right. Those are the things that a realtor should be helping me look out, because we don't know what we're looking for. We know what
Right.
we want, but we don't know what we're looking for. So,
Right. Well, you
man,
got to
thank
have a second set of eyeballs. I mean, that's
yes,
we're looking outside the box. You're in the box.
yeah,
You can only see so much. Your blinders are on, and
right,
you're again. You as a buyer should be able to focus on your needs in that property. What is that property going to do for you? Are the bedrooms too close? Am I going to be able to put my office somewhere?
right,
Those types of things. That's what you as the buyer should be looking at. Me as the agent, I should be looking at all the other
Yeah.
foreign language things that are in that process to see, what potential challenges. And again, like you said, that crack probably was absolutely nothing, but it was there. So, and it may have been there for a reason, or may have been there because somebody put the door into the wall. I mean, anything could happen. But um, you know, and I guess in closing, I would just say that you have so many opportunities as a buyer to work with an agent. Work with an agent that you like, that is easy to talk to, that doesn't just talk circles around you and just kind of leave you in la la land. Someone should be able to break it down to your level or bring it up to your level, as far as your manner of understanding things, because, you do what you do, and I don't necessarily understand all of that, and I do what I do. So, we should easily have a meeting of the minds to kind of get everybody on the same page. And I think that if you're working with somebody that is just not clicking with that, or, you don't get the communications, or they just don't necessarily have, some contacts for you in the background that you can reach out to, and, that sort of thing, it might be an opportunity for you to say, well, maybe I should talk to someone else.
Right, right. Man, this has been very informative. So, any final thoughts, final words, final comments, and definitely let the viewers know how they can reach you if they have any comments or want to talk to you.
Sure. I mean, obviously, just like most, we have a website, which is the northwestfloridaforsale.com. I do have a Twitter account, and as well as Instagram and Facebook and all the other things that go with it. I'm fortunate to have one of those weird names. So if you just Google Cosmo and Crestview, you could probably find just about every way of talking to me that there is. Um, like I said, it's no lie. If I'm awake and I get a text message from somebody at 11 o'clock at night, I'm returning that text message. Same thing with an email. If I happen to be on my email, you're going to get an email back from me. Um, when looking for a realtor, again, experience does matter. And I think that trying to find someone to work with that you just can get along with, that you honestly like, and, can tell you the things that you should hear, is very important. You shouldn't be told the things that you want to hear. You should be told the things that you should hear. Um, so you can reach out to me anytime, and I'm happy to help.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Again, I do thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise, and thank you for coming on and being a guest on Let's Talk Family.
Anytime, my pleasure. Next time we can talk about investment properties.
Ooh, that, you know what? You're coming back.
Sounds good.
All right. Hey, so just so you know, yes, he was my realtor, but check this out. He signed up to be the show before we started looking for a house. I actually met him about 4 years ago, and I knew we was going to be buying property soon. And so honestly, I just talked to him like every 3 or 4 months. And that's how I got to know what to look for and what things to look for in the area and everything, how the market was doing. And maybe that's a technique for you to find a realtor and get to know them, talk to them, find out what their expertise is, what you looking for, what should I be looking for, what does the market look like, all those. I hope you didn't get tired of my crazy questions, but I did it over and over again. But the housing piece is a big thing within the family. It's the place where we go. The big thing now is sitting around a dinner table. But if you don't have a house, you don't have a dinner table. So the house is a big thing in the family, and that's why I wanted to bring a realtor in here, just to talk about things about the house and what to look for, and we even got into what to look for in the realtor, which I didn't even think about, but that was a definitely a good line of questions. But this has been another episode of Let's Talk Family. I am your host, Warren Mr. Bowtie Feaster, your marriage foundation specialist. I do thank you for being on. I always like to end with my 3 points of interest. One, the center of everything is family. Two, be the best you that you can be. And three, is called life. Live it. Have a great day.